watched as complacency replaced discipline. We sat on the sidelines as clickbait replaced our history. And we kept silent as our skill sets and careers became automated, antiquated, routine, and forgotten. This is unacceptable. We're here to guide you towards putting down your number and reclaiming your given name. We're here to guide you towards your vision of freedom. The world has changed, and there's no more room for willful ignorance. So to those happy with being stuck, with being complacent, this podcast's not for you. But to those looking for more, follow us as we reclaim it all. For our children, for our grandchildren, and for future generations to come.
From somewhere deep undercover in the Pacific Northwest, this is the American Reveille Podcast, and here is your host, James Lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. What? No, not the American Reveille. Well, actually, the American Reveille is a hell of a show. We're pretty all right, but no, I'm talking about life in general. What do I mean? Life's a trip, guys. If I went back in time and I told 17-year-old me that I'd personally relate to the Into Club guy more than any male figure I'd know when I was a 35-year-old man, if you would tell me that I'd understand the different cards that life deals us better because of this guy back then, maybe I'd laugh at you, maybe I'd crack you in the mouth. I don't know. Certain things took me longer to learn than other in life, and life's kind of funny like that. And this episode's actually a long time in the making for me. This topic doesn't end here either, and this is really the first part of what I hope to be maybe like 3 or 4 different episodes we could do at different times on Mr. Curtis Jackson, and how we can kind of relate to him and his struggles a little bit, and the power he attained. This episode's special to me. I'm going to reveal some of the magic to you, some of the sparkly shit that we usually can't see, the stuff that people who've been through hardship try and teach others, a glimpse of the invisible lines that connect everything and everyone. I want you all to understand something. If you pay attention to the story behind the story of my episodes individually and as a whole, you may just find an entire cookbook for changing your life. And I want you to find it. To me, it's like the Matrix. No one can tell you precisely what it is. You just have to see it for yourself. But when you do, you'll never forget it. And even if you know a lot of this stuff, you'll at least be entertained and maybe learn a new approach to an obstacle that you may be facing. So before we briefly talk about what you do know about 50 Cent, let's talk about what you might not know about Mr. Curtis Jackson in concept, which, by the way, for those who don't know, he released a new book the other week titled Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. So a lot of this stuff I'm getting from him, I'm not planning on spoiling his book. So most of what you hear will be how I relate to him and how you can kind of utilize that same source of power and kind of find it by relating to people who've done it already. So Mr. Jackson's been pretty diversified for years and years. He's invested all over the place. He's been on television producer for years and years and years now. And he even says in the books that he's been in television production a lot longer than even the times when he was hustling on the street. So that comes straight from him. And that's really what you have to understand about the power of reading as well, especially about people you can relate to and even people that had it really a lot rougher than maybe we did. I had a pretty rough fucking childhood, and we're going to compare a few things in the first section, but 50 had harder lessons than I did, and as I'm sure he'd admit, some people had it harder than him too. You draw inspiration from wherever you need to draw it from. So 50 Cent of all people, find me in the club, bottle full of bub, 50 Cent, shot 9 times, 50 Cent, iconic rapper, 50 Cent. What's a famous rapper and television producer have in common with a white boy from South Florida? So much more than I would admit 10 or 15 years ago. And I could imagine, this is a guess, of course, he might say the same, though he'll never hear this anyway. It's fun to talk about and imagine. So I'm going to tell you a few stories from both sides of the coin. I'm going to weave it in a way that relates to you, and then you can decide whether or not it applies to you. In his new book, Mr. Jackson says that if he's going to bet on a horse, to let it be him. You know, it's a very important important personal statement, and there's a big lesson to be learned there. If you're unshakable, if you're unstoppable, if you're uncomfortable with fear and you challenge it, you use it to guide you, when you can rely on yourself, the stars are the limit, not the sky, the stars, as long as you can stay out of your own way, of course. So I know how that feels to want everything to be on your own shoulders because you have 100% faith and confidence in yourself, your durability, your ability to survive and drive forward until the day is done, the work is done, and the problems are really solved. And now Mr. Jackson knew about loss, abandonment, emptiness. We know about the death of his mother as a youth, and we know it had an impact on him, a really deep one. And he never knew his father, and neither did I until later, of course, as you guys know. But I learned the same abandonment, the same betrayal when my dad came back years and years later. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Many of us that seek more, many of us come from broken homes, broken families, and even the ones from good families are still usually suffering some kind of loss, some sort of disconnection that really kind of binds us together through all this shit. So though I was never shot 9 times, I did have the pleasure of my own dope dealing father pointing and discharging his gun at me a few times inside of his fucking shitty nog champa patchouli smelling bedroom, missing me, of course. But I think you understand that I might understand betrayal and abandonment myself. I kind of have goosebumps talking about it, not from remembering it, but because the memory fills me with resolve as a man today. I think some folks will understand what I'm saying and where I'm coming from. You may think that I'm crazy relating myself to such a famous person, but they're no different than you and I, and we need to recognize where we are, where they are, where you are on our journeys. That's really the only difference between us. I'm just at an earlier part of the path, and I may never get to where he is or certain other people, but that doesn't mean there aren't similarities. That also doesn't mean that there isn't a purpose to this, that there are plans and strategies behind every single word, I promise you. And we're all still humans together. So 50 talks about his fearlessness in life and business, which he also talks about in his first book, The 50th Law, with the great Robert Greene, which was fantastic. But it's important to understand that 50 makes a really good point. He says that he's been through so much stuff that he has nothing left to be afraid of. And it isn't that he's not scared. He's still scared. It's just that he understands the importance of following his fear. The 4 F's, guys, remember? Following fear finds fortitude and facilitates firmness. We talked about it a bunch of episodes ago, but we've talked about all this before, how the fear, that feeling in your stomach, that guide, how it can lead you to greatness, how it lets you know your passion. It lets you know you have a purpose. It's real. You can taste it, and it's so valuable. Getting back to it, he mentions how he joined a boxing gym in the first chapter of his new book. He was a young teen. I joined a pro wrestling gym as a teen. The fake shit, of course. But when you go to an old school trainer in Florida, some may attest, it isn't as fake as most people would think. I mean, the shows are, but the beatings aren't. Any good training's not fake. I wasn't anything special. I never was, but they beat the living shit out of me. And just the same, I got better just like he did. I was so uncoordinated and heavy on my feet that actually was the hardest thing for me to break. You know, I'm good for blitzing. I'm a short, stubby, maybe not too short. I'm 6 foot, but I'm a stubby white guy, man, built for deadlifts and squats. But learning how to use the balls of my feet instead of my heels, man, oh my God, that took so long. But just as my father had broken or fractured my nose, jaw, or ribs a few times, the beatings from wrestling just made me learn to take hits and survive even more. So Curtis was afraid many times as a kid, as a teen, as an adult. He sold drugs. He got shot. All kinds of unfortunate things happened to him, and all kinds of unfortunate things have happened to me, and all kinds of unfortunate things have happened to every single one of us. But the difference is it made him stronger. He used it to learn. And even though it may be fucked up how he learned, and how I have learned a lot of my lessons and how many of you have, we drew a guidebook from this. It almost became its own type of mentorship, its own type of inspiration, full of experience from the lessons we learned. So look, I have no recognition of the number of times my father gave me concussions, but I can promise you the amount of times I pissed myself and blacked out I could imagine it's more than a few. And how do you ever feel safe when home is hell? And a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people. Look, I was a bouncer for years. And besides talking to a bunch of people and validating those things, I've also been punched in the face dozens of times. And I was always scared at work. And we used to have to pack weapons on us. I've sat in cars full of guns and drugs before, and I was always scared during that as well. I'm not perfect. And that's what I love about 50 Cent. That's what I love about Curtis. He's not perfect either. And though I may not be a millionaire, he wasn't always one himself. So I can relate to him. We can relate to him. His success should be proof that if we pay attention, we might be able to skip a few steps. And that's the whole goal, to try to learn as much as we can from others and from experience. That's what we have to do. That's what's necessary to succeed. You learn a lot from getting punched in the face, guys. You really learn a lot about yourself from getting punched in the face. And I know, because I wasn't always a fighter. Still, eventually something drove me to get comfortable with pain, with being hit, and to get good at avoiding punches. Maybe not even comfortable. Maybe I'd say comfortably uncomfortable with getting punched. So all of the organization I talk about, the discipline, the vision, the focus, all of this stuff puts you on the offensive against your biggest opponent. The bullshit that life throws at you. And I promise you, and so does Curtis in his book, life never stops throwing bullshit at you. I'm not directly quoting him, by the way, guys, so please don't sue me. I really don't have that fucking much money. Anyway, it's funny. It's real time for some folks. It's time for some real talk. The imposter is actually creeping up on me right now. And when I hear myself saying this, I don't feel like I really have the right, but at the same time, I've lived all this shit. It's real. It happened to me. I can remember it so vividly. I can bring tears to my own eyes on command if I want. And it's priceless information for us to talk about. Otherwise, why did it happen, right? I mean, it should have never happened, but if it did happen, at least there should be a point to it. At least I can use it to help other people. So like the ones who've made it always say, they still feel this imposter too, this thing that tells you you don't belong here, but you have to get past it and pour yourself into the work, allowing really the world to just decide what's worthy or not. So folks, think about what I just said. And when the American Reveille Podcast gets back, Curtis Jackson's going to reveal his greatest fear, and so will I. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Thanks.
The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would like to take a moment to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune into the show. It's because of great fans like you that we strive to deliver the best quality content one can create as fast as one can fling the pen. With that being said, a good little boy never misses his opportunity to sell himself, and though James would never ask you for your money, he would like to let you know that if you absolutely love this podcast, the writing, the art, its production, anything, please do us the personal favor of liking, sharing, tweeting, texting, and talking about this podcast. James Lane is a father, a husband, a U.S. Navy veteran, and is personally committed to the success of the American Reveille Podcast. Please email James Lane directly at podcast@AmericanReveille.com, or please visit our website at www.AmericanReveille.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and the man who once took you and me to the candy shop has granted me the inspiration to open my own candy shop in this motherfucker as we're open for business. So You're going to find that this podcast touches upon certain sensitive subjects like fear, and fear is going to get revisited once again in this segment. We've talked about the power of fear, so it makes sense that 50 cents helps us up the ante. So he admits in his book that due to his mother's death and how he had to live his life, he still has issues with family, and he's afraid to even visit home on the holidays. He goes on to talk about how the majority of anyone who's ever betrayed him or hurt him, ever abandoned him, they were all family. And though I have a very different family, which I've worked tirelessly to try and patch together as best I can, which isn't much, I feel weird going home or being around people as well. I don't speak to my father. It's not like he's anywhere I know anyway. It's been many years, nor will he ever have the right to meet his grandchildren anyway. So there's really no point, nor would I feel anything whatsoever anyway at this point. And that's the truth. I took what I needed. I mourned it already. I'm good. I'm sure many of you can kind of relate to something similar, be it a friend, a family member, maybe not directly, maybe through death. But honestly, the more I grew, the more that relationship in my brain died, even as family or even as something that was related to me as a human being. The more I learned from failure and succeeded even greater in the long run, honestly succeeded, ethically succeeded, the more the memory became a help and not really a hindrance. So it's so important to self-esteem and confidence that we admit our fears, that we understand who we are and what our capabilities are so that we may realistically plan out and leverage ourselves to really achieve those great things that we're meant to achieve. 50 goes on to say that while he was selling drugs, he was afraid. While he was getting shot, he was afraid. While he was recovering, he was afraid. He was afraid while making music. He felt fear producing television. He feels fear right now. But again, the fear indicated his passion, his purpose, his ability to not accept the fear, to not accept defeat and failure. It allowed him to rise above the rest. It allowed him to fail and come back again and again, to remain consistent for long stretches of emptiness. Many people quit during these periods. Curtis didn't. I haven't and won't. And you don't have to either. So we admit our fears. We step up. We step up and claim what's ours, as long as we've put the work in, of course. You have to remember that no one's entitled to anything. This stuff that I'm talking about, it doesn't guarantee you anything except a ticket to the show, to at least maybe have a chance at those wins, a chance to try your hand at bat for once in life. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again right now. No one will do it for us. No one is coming. We have to face the fear and follow it forward. We have to stand up into the spotlight when we know something can do something better and properly represent ourselves. No one in their right mind will give you a raise or promote you if they don't know who you are. And just like a company trying to market a product, if you don't market yourself, get yourself seen, no one will know you exist. Even if you do the best work in your state, in the country, no one will see it if you don't ever put it out there. So Mr. Jackson verifies this in his book. You have to step up and stand out when you really know your shit. You need the confidence, the talk, the walk, the perception. It's all a part of it. And if you're not willing to go the extra mile, somebody else definitely will. That person probably will be me. You need to have tact. You have to know when and what to say, how to say it. You need to read Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, like I've mentioned many, many times before. You have to be secure in what you know and have the ability to properly communicate what you know. If you have this, take the lead and charge forward. I'd like to take a quick second to say that I've never spoken with Mr. Jackson. He doesn't know this podcast exists, nor do I have any intention of misrepresenting him. Or I've made this because it's valuable to me, and I respect his life experience and lessons, and I've learned from them, so I know it will help somebody else that hears it. So what can we take from this? Don't wait. That's what we can take from this. Don't wait. Don't wait around for the best idea to come to you or to create the perfect thing. Just work. Work your ass off and take the problems that come and solve them, even if they seem impossible. Even if it takes months and years, just solve them one at a time. You have to keep moving. You can't stay still. That's a big secret. There's no true rest. Like I've said before, and like 50 says in his book, the problems keep coming. So why is it so hard to imagine that we couldn't have our own ticket to the dance, our own try at some success and financial freedom? In any field of our choosing, anything you could imagine. Not everyone will be a famous rap artist, though, but that doesn't mean that you can't have your own slice of freedom. So with that being said, when we get back, I'm going to dig a little deeper into the book. We're going to start making some important connections and comparisons that may make you scratch your head and go, maybe, just maybe, something will stick, something will relate. The switch will click on. This moment right now could be the moment you decide to change your life. I've done it. Mr. Jackson's done it. Everyone finds that true success from within themselves first. So with that, folks, we'll be right back.
The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would like to take a moment to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune into the show. It's because of great fans like you that we strive to deliver the best quality content one can create as fast as one can fling the pen. With that being said, a good little boy never misses his opportunity to sell himself, and though James would never ask you for your money, he would like to let you know that if you absolutely love this podcast, the writing, the art, its production, anything, please do us the personal favor of liking, sharing, tweeting, texting, and talking about this podcast. James Lane is a father, a husband, a U.S. Navy veteran, and is personally committed to the success of the American Reveille Podcast. Please email James Lane directly at podcast@AmericanReveille.com, or please visit our website at www.AmericanReveille.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
Howdy, folks. We are back for the third and final segment of episode 13, lucky episode 13 of the American Reveille Podcast. This is your host, James Lane, and I wanted to get your feedback on what you think of this show so far. The last one, the Waterboy Hypothesis. I loved that one, and I kind of wanted to see what you guys thought. I tried something a little different with these two. So if you like it, please get a hold of me and tell me so. And the same goes for critiques. I can't get better without your help. And what I'm about to talk about ensures that you understand why I'll come through on my promises, that you'll understand why you should trust this podcast. We're talking about the things I've learned from 50 Cent, and frankly, what we can all learn from his new book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter, the ride we've been on thus far, and how we can apply these things to our own lives. And after Mr. Jackson's beliefs confirmed my episodes about harnessing the fear, I feel pretty confident in talking about vision once again, just like I did in the very first episodes of this show. So we've talked about the importance of writing things down, and 50 mentions a study that shows 42 times greater chance of success at any goal just from writing it down. So that's pretty easy knowledge right there. I mean, knowing what we want gets us on the path. He says, never break your stride. I say keep the momentum going as well. Take ownership, triage what's important, and move on from the unimportant bullshit. I said a bunch of episodes ago that it's important to be able to focus on the task at hand, to trust ourselves, to foresee the future as it comes, and to make our chess moves, to forgive ourselves and others, to be humble, knowing that life will come in cycles. And when we re-encounter these similar situations, it's important to conduct ourselves like we've learned something. This really makes the universe happy, and some people understand what I'm saying. Look, I have a ton on my plate with this podcast. I have school, work, parenting, all the stuff that comes with it. If you've been following me on Twitter at American Reveille, or on Instagram at American_Reveille, you've seen what my calendar looks like. I always post it. So allow me to make a point with a little story. The other day, an incident happened with a neighbor. My wife and I were out walking the dogs, and we had the baby in the stroller. And when somebody with a large dog came out of nowhere, my dogs got spooked, and and I got a little boy named Chucho. He's like 10 pounds. He got off the leash. He ran off. And meanwhile, the neighbor looked confused and dumbfounded and wouldn't leave with her dog. So I turned to run after my dog, planted my foot wrong, and severely sprained my calf and Achilles tendon. And if you've been there, then you won't be confused as to why I went down like a 240-pound sack of potatoes. I was pretty helpless at that moment. I was angry as anyone would be. And in fact, I may have yelled a bad word or two in that neighbor's direction, though I quickly restrained myself. My wife actually had to hand me the baby and run after the little Chiweenie Chucho before a car could have hit him. And I'm actually now on crutches for a few days. But what am I doing? I'm still working my ass off. 17 hours a day between everything else. Do I have a case to pursue? Maybe, but why? This is what adulting looks like. It's choosing to drop the dog thing, displeasing your own vengeance-seeking primordial urges, and focusing on grinding away at the task at hand. That's adulting. I'm capable of that because I have my priorities straight. I know exactly where I stand and what I have to do to achieve my goals. That's how you begin to find freedom, folks. 50 talks about privilege and comparisons. He makes a bold statement, too. One I feel is essential to quote because to read somebody say it, or if you have Audible to hear somebody say it, it's like receiving validation that you never thought you'd ever get. If you spent your childhood worrying about past due bills, family members in jail, or gunshots on your corner, you possess real resilience. Curtis Jackson said that. 50 Cent said that. I'm going to say this again. This is straight from his book. If you spent your childhood worrying about past due bills, family members in jail, or gunshots on your corner, you possess real resilience. Amen, Curtis. Thank you. I am resilient, and I know many of you are too. And it's okay if you're still building up your calluses and learning from your own experiences, but learn from our experiences. I acknowledge my resilience. No one outworks me. No one will defeat me. I promise you, if they are, it's because I'm allowing it to happen for a strategic purpose. He says if he lost everything, as he's looking out the window at a peanut vendor in the street, he says that if he lost everything that day, by the next day he'd have a 50s nut shop across the road, competing for territory and eventually find his way back into the game. And I can attest to that type of resiliency and attitude. I may not have ever reached where he's reached, but remember, he's got 10 years on me, so I'm just catching up. But I bet you he stood in the mirror as I have with his arms stretched out, visualizing his future and feeling some primal and ancient emotion coursing through his veins. I've lost everything a few times and I've come back stronger every time because I know how to hustle and get back what I've lost quicker from every single failure. Success after some time isn't personally measured by what's in the bank, and I'm sure he'll tell you that same thing himself. So whether I one day make millions or I stay six-figure or my family's fed, my bills are paid, and I'm hungry. I'm hungry to fulfill my life's passion and leave a positive legacy with this earth. I'm as successful right now as I ever will be in my spirit. That doesn't mean it wouldn't hurt for all of us to make a little more cheddar. So all of these things can be developed. They really can. You need to take responsibility for your destiny. You need to just take it. Just take it. It's right there. You're the only thing that's in your way. That's it. It will never be easy, but as we've talked about in previous episodes, the suffering just ripens that fruit of victory, man. All the hustling, all the hard work, all the passion, all the purpose, it doesn't guarantee us anything besides maybe a ticket to the show. And then maybe, just maybe, if you're lucky, a few chances at bat, maybe. Some folks are made to hit nothing but home runs, guys, and we have to accept that. Others are average players, and some always just strike out. Whichever player you are, you have the opportunity to improve yourself, to get better, to be better, to do better, and rise up from what you are now and become who you were always meant to be. We may never get to be 50 Cent, but that doesn't mean you couldn't have a ridiculously awesome life as his lawyer or his accountant or the head of one of his companies that provides security for him, or even the guy running his landscaping operation for his mansions. I'm sure he makes dough. Look, we all have a role to play in this world, and I can imagine that all the people I just mentioned make fantastic money, have fantastic lives, and have respect. It all really just depends on what you want. But one thing is plain and simple. I never thought 50 Cent would turn out to be one of my personal mentors. And if you don't understand how he can be my mentor, yet we've never met, then you need to go back and listen to some of my episodes where I talk about mentorship and the power of reading. He has a book co-authored with Robert effing Greene, another great mentor of mine. I've learned so much from him and his other books, his Laws of Power, his strategy book. Oh my gosh. Sometimes when you don't have a father, or your own father isn't a father at all, you find yourself unconsciously seeking father figures to fill mentorship roles in your own life. It's natural. The difference between the man I am now and the man I was then is that I now consciously seek them because I understand their value and benefit. So now that we're closing this thing up, what are the key takeaways from this episode? Well, for one, we talked about how we can relate to people who've been through similar or worse experiences and pick out those essential life lessons from them. It really allows us to skip failures that we just don't have to make. We can learn from these other people if we're smart enough to listen, of course. So we also talked about being afraid. And again, we talked about the importance of using that fear to our advantage. And we really drove it home this time, guys. We let you in on the truth behind your chances about what it takes, the do or die effort involved at making your dreams come true, your reality. Anything is possible, but it takes work, consistency, resilience, and of course, the ability to hustle properly in any given circumstance or situation. And though maybe I had it all along, I'd like to thank 50 for showing me my inner hustler. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you like what we did today, please let me know. I've got material for a bunch of more of these, and I'm really accessible. So if you don't want to talk in public, if you don't want to tweet to me, if you don't want to do anything like that, remember, you can always send me an email at jameslane@AmericanReveille.com, and I answer everybody, whether it's a question or just feedback about how we can improve the show. So the clock's ticking, folks, and I have to get on going. So I'm excited. We'll see you next week. This is James Lane, and I'm clocking the fuck out. Catch our epic motivation videos and some of our other content on YouTube at American Reveille, and also check us out on social media throughout the week and BS with us. We'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.